On a recent Gamescast, I was asking Wes about Propagation Paradise Hotel. From the trailers, it seemed like a mini version of The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. There looked to be small amounts of crafting, and even the setting seems ripped straight out of Chapter 2 Retribution. Wes's response was interesting. He said that Propagation has far more in common with early Resident Evil games than Saints and Sinners. In 5 minutes into Propagation, it's clear that Wes was spot on with his comparison.
What is that?
But before you even think the words Resident Evil, you're likely going to think the words Red Matter, because, not to be hyperbolic, but Propagation Paradise Hotel feels like what would happen if you asked Vertical Robot to make a horror game. Well, kind of. It's about as close as you could get to the level of visual detail without being quite on par with Vertical Robot's masterpieces. The environments are super high res, it's running at 120 Hz, and despite all of the darkness that permeates practically every scene, Mura is barely noticeable. There are great reflections everywhere, shadows from your flashlight move appropriately, and the zombie character models, some more than others, feel really intimidating. Sadly, none of this is evident from the social screen output that you're seeing here, which not only runs at a slower than average frame rate, but also makes the game look much darker than it really is. So you're just going to have to trust me on this. In the headset, Propagation looks utterly fantastic. And listen, I don't mean this to sound disparaging, but considering the visual style of developer Wanted Dev's last title, Ragnarok, and the $20 price point of Propagation, I fully expected a lot of copy and pasted hallways and hotel rooms to rear their ugly head during my playthrough. But somehow, they managed to make every room look and feel unique. And every similar looking hallway has something going on with it to differentiate it from the last. The hotel is also filled with some of the creepiest ambient noise known to man. Floorboards creak, zombies groan, thunder crashes, and without spoiling too much, there's a significant amount of game going on here. Not only are there multiple difficulty levels to choose from, but there are also 30 collectibles to find, horrific boss encounters, manual reloads, resources like batteries, health, and ammo to manage, scripted moments that I definitely didn't expect at all, and an insanely high level of tension that kicks off in the first 20 minutes, and then doesn't let up until the game comes to a close 4 hours later. Keep in mind that I only played on the default normal difficulty, and I did take my time getting through the hotel, so you could get through the hotel much faster or much slower depending on what your choices are. I have to say I get a strange kick out of some of the puzzles, and here's where Propagation stops feeling like a Vertical Robot joint. Most of the puzzles here are straightforward and just require a ton of backtracking to find the right item to use, but some are ridiculous, and I mean that in a good way. One in particular stood out that stopped me in my tracks and had me sneaking back and forth behind the zombie for, I don't know, upwards of 5 minutes. Now, that doesn't sound like a long time, but when the tension is this high, it felt like an eternity. With the audio and visuals firing on all cylinders, you'd expect the more simple PSVR2 enhancements like adaptive triggers and haptics to be on point as well. But unfortunately, most of that seems to have been overlooked. Games like Tales from the Galaxy's Edge showed us how effective haptics can be when doing menial tasks. So when I picked up a power tool and pulled the trigger for the first time, I was shocked to get nothing back from the controller. And in a game where you're firing handguns and shotguns, getting a little kickback from the controllers and the headset would have added to the immersion significantly. But I think my biggest complaint comes from item interactions. Storing stuff in your fanny pack is easy, but grabbing anything out of your inventory or checking your journal for objectives brings up this comically out-of-place Monopoly board of a menu. It's clunky to work with, feels strange to use, and isn't immersive in the slightest. But hey, at least it shows your position on the map in real time, and that was incredibly helpful. Propagation Paradise Hotel was a surprise for me. With all the horror games that we got on PSVR1 that never felt like complete games, somehow this hotel manages to tick almost every box I have for horror. With its massive Resident Evil 1 vibes, the tension was high, the environments looked great, and every zombie encounter had me panicked. But the real surprise is how much I loved every moment from start to finish. So if you're like me and looking for an awesome, terrifying way to kick off your Halloween season, you can't go wrong with Propagation.